How you doing today? My name is David Gugina, and in today's book review, I have one of the most famous books I believe I've ever read, and it's a very interesting book, but the reason why the book's interesting is because the author is very famous. And most of you guys might know who the author is, but when it comes to this book that I'm about to read to you, I do believe that telling a good story or telling someone to do something or explaining something to someone, you need to have detail, you need to have examples. Now, something about this author, he gives examples, but his examples are like an hour long before he gets to the actual point. So, this book I have for us today is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Now, this is a very thick book, and this was the book actually. A lot of the books I've been reviewing have been read a pretty long time ago, and this is like probably maybe the 5th book that I've read, and this book was a challenge. I will admit, he is a little hard to figure out what he's talking about, and when he gets to the point, I want to say like 2 to 3, we'll use the book for example. He'll tell a story, and then 4 or 5 pages later, that story that he told is the point that he was trying to make. So, difficult read, but also it keeps you, I will admit, it keeps you focused because you want to know what's the point of the story, what's it going to lead to, what's the example of it. And to be honest, some people like that. I do like straight to the point, but I also do like a little bit of detail here and there. But Jordan Peterson is also a very serious guy. If you watch interviews on him, almost everything he talks about, he is so serious about. But there is a second 12 Rules for Life that I would love to eventually read and love to eventually get to. But before we dive into that book, we're going to get into the first 12 Rules for Life. And something I've also wondered, which I might figure out, is why is it called 12 Rules for Life? Why isn't there more and why is there less? I don't know, but I might figure that out. So the first point we have today, start with the introduction. We're going to start with Rule 4. In 12 Rules for Life, and this is what he has to say in Rule 4. So listen to this. People can learn even if they are very unskilled at the beginning. Ask yourself, what would require to be motivated to undertake the job? Honestly, and listen to the answer. Don't tell yourself, I should need to do that to motivate myself. What do you know about yourself? You are, on the one hand, the most complex thing in the entire universe. And on the other, someone who can't even set the clock on your microwave. Don't overestimate your self-knowledge. Let the tasks for the day announce themselves by your contemplation. Maybe you can do this in the morning as you sit on the edge of your bed. Maybe you can try the night before. When you are preparing to sleep, ask yourself for a voluntary contribution. If you ask nicely, listen carefully, and don't try any treachery, you might be offered one. Do this every day for a while, then do it for the rest of your life. Soon you will find yourself in a very different situation. Now you will be asking yourself habitually, what could I do that I would do to make life a little better? You are not dictating to yourself what better must be. You are not being a totalitarian or a utopian, even to yourself, because you have learned from the Nazis and the Soviets and the Moists, here's the examples I was telling you about, and from your own experience that being a totalitarian is a bad thing. Aim high, set your sights on the betterment of being, align yourself in your soul with truth and the highest good. There is habitable order to establish and beauty to bring into existence. There is evil to overcome, suffering to ameliorate, and yourself to better. So I know that was a lot of random stuff, but honestly, if you think about it, when you're not motivated to do a task or to learn something, do you ever ask yourself why you're not motivated? You might be tired at work. Well, let's say it's not after work. Let's say it's in the morning. You get up at 6 and your day starts at 9. You got 3 hours before you have to be at work. Let's say work is 20 minutes away. You have 3.5 hours before you have to be in your car and on your way to work. Well, you got 3.5 hours. You have the time. It's in the morning. You're in comfortable clothes. You're probably tired because it's the morning time, but you're awake. You got your coffee or your stimulants with you, and you're just probably wondering, why am I not motivated? Why do I not want to do this? Sometimes I'm not motivated to do these. I have a Christmas party that I'm going to in about an hour from now, And I'm like squeezing this in on top of a little bit of editing and then on top of some posting, but then I ask myself, why am I not motivated? And the answer for myself is just simply, sometimes I don't want to do it. But honestly, in life, now this is sometimes I enjoy doing these things, but also when I don't want to do it is usually when there's some spare time I love to spend watching a movie, sleeping, but I also choose to do this. To be successful in life and to accomplish your goals, you have to do stuff you don't want to do. And also, people can learn even if they are very unskilled at the beginning. And you might be unskilled at motivating yourself. Now, is motivating yourself a skill? It's not, but it's a skill of like knowing how your brain works to stay motivated, to continue to be motivated. Because something I'm working on is actually as crazy as it sounds, are my break times, my breaks. During working on this, not at my job, but working on this. The reason why is because if you do not have breaks and you do not have rest time where you can let your brain be free of not thinking, you will burn out. And you might think, well, I like the grind, I can do this. Well, you'll miss some television or some entertainment, you'll miss hanging out with friends, you'll miss video games or whatever you like to do that you don't really have to focus on. And you like don't do any of that, you don't take any rest time or any breaks to do that stuff, you will burn out. It is just a matter of time, but you will burn out. Now, the other thing that you need to think about is not really just that, but something else that you need to think about is set your sights on the betterment of being. Just set your sights on just being better. Not really at your job per se, but just you being you. Like for example, I'm struggling with getting to bed on time. And you might think, well, why? Well, with motivation, for example, after work and after weight training, I'm not motivated to move quickly to prepare for work and go to bed. But how I motivate myself is I tell myself, if you do not go to bed on time, you will be miserable for your next day at work. Miserable. Why? I mean, I work 12-hour shifts and my day starts at 6 in the morning. You will be tired and you will just be miserable. Now, that is not a bad way to motivate yourself, but the reason why you motivate yourself that way is because you got to think of the trade-off. So, for example, if you want to start a business, and you might think, well, the trade-off will be I have to spend more time on it, I have to focus more, I have to sacrifice more things with friends and stuff like that. But then you also got to motivate yourself this way. You might think, well, gee, I don't want those trade-offs, but endure those trade-offs is you're like, well, if I do not start this business, I will not start anything new in my life. So you see, you kind of got to weigh like what happens when you don't do something and you don't change. You got to motivate what's going to happen if you do not do it. So yeah, now the next point that Jordan Peterson has, which I really like, is this right here. So listen to this. Listen to this. At least then you might be good for something, if not good yet for everything. You can't fix a car with an axe, but you can cut down a tree. That's still something. At about the same time I was seeing this client, the media was all afire with stories of recovered memories, particularly of assault. The dispute raged space where these genuine accounts of past trauma, or where they post-hoc constructs dreamed up as a consequence of pressure wittingly or unwittingly applied by incautious therapists. Grasped and due desperately by clinical clients, all too eager to find simple cause for all their trouble. Sometimes it was the former, perhaps sometimes the latter. I understood much more clearly and precisely, however, how easy it might be to instill a false memory into the mental landscape as soon as my client revealed her uncertainty about her experiences. The past appears to be fixed, but it's not in an important psychological sense. There is an awful lot to the past. After all, the way we organize it can be a subject to drastic revision. So that was kind of an example right there, but when you think of the past, you can't think of like your past mistakes or your past like difficulties. Said here, you can't fix a car with an axe, but you can cut down a tree. Sometimes it takes a while to find the right tool for the right job. Sometimes it takes time to find motivation to do the thing that you want to do. Now, time also, as in, if 5 years from now I choose to go to bed on time, but I choose to be miserable, people will be like, well, why didn't you do this 5 years ago? Because it seemed like an easy thought or an easy way to fix it. So, And speaking of motivation, something else I'm trying to motivate myself with is to move quicker. So for those of you all watching, I don't move fast. I start my day very early just because I do not move quickly. I leave for work, I get up 2 hours early before my shift at work because I move very slowly. Get myself to move quicker is I tell myself, you will spend the entire day doing what you want to get in, and you will end your day by going to bed. So there'll be no fun things, it'll just be work, 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 and because you're moving slowly, your day will end by you eating dinner, taking a shower, and going to bed. So think about that. Now notice that when he brings up all this random stuff, that's how Jordan Peterson talks. So this is a difficult read. It takes a minute to put together and to interpret, but overall these examples are not bad. And even like the one I mentioned earlier, finding motivation to do stuff is important. Because you'll see people on YouTube or motivational speakers being like, it doesn't take motivation, it just takes doing it. But you can't really tell somebody that. It's not a science, but there is a method to staying motivated, to working harder, and to moving quicker. And to be honest, staying motivated, there's something interesting about staying motivated or being motivated. In school, how do you motivate kids to want to learn? Honestly, I don't know. And you ask people that, they will be like, I do not know how to motivate, let's say, a freshman in high school to pass Algebra 1. He's not going to use it in life, he's not going to use it now, and he doesn't want to do it. And it's funny because there's an actual disorder to not wanting to follow directions. Isn't that crazy? I can't remember what it's called, but there's a legit disorder for refusing to follow directions and doing the right thing. Now, not that anybody has that, but that's just something to think about. I mean, how do you motivate other people to live a life that you want and pursue their goals? I don't know, but please let me know in the comments how you think you would do that. But just at least then you might be good for something, if not good yet for everything. So, they said you can't fix a car with an axe, but you can cut down a tree. See, you have the right tool for the right job. You couldn't fix the car, but you could cut down the tree. So just think about that for a second. You might not be able to do this, but you will be able to do that. Alright, now the third and final point that we have from Jordan Peterson is this right here. So now, I want you to think about this very closely, but I also want you to think about just think about all the stuff I've told you. Staying motivated and staying focused and doing what you want to do and to make your life easier. But listen to what he has to say here. Why remain vague when it renders life stagnant and murky? Well, if you don't know who you are, you can hide in doubt. Maybe you're not a bad, careless, worthless person. Who knows? Not you. Particularly if you refuse to think about it, and you have every reason not to. But not thinking about something you don't want to know about doesn't make it go away. You are merely trading specific, particularly pointed knowledge of the likely finite list of real faults and flaws for a much longer list of undefined potential inadequacies. I didn't know why I took them so insufficiencies. Why refuse to investigate when knowledge of reality enables mastery of reality? And if not mastery, at least the stature of an honest amateur. Well, what if there truly is something rotten in the state of Denmark? Then what? Isn't it better under such conditions to live in a willful blindness and enjoy the bliss of ignorance? Well, not if the monster is real. Do you truly think it is a good idea to retreat, to abandon the possibility of arming yourself against the rising sea of troubles, and to thereby diminish yourself in your own eyes? Do you truly think it is wise to let the catastrophe grow in the shadows while you shrink and decrease and become ever more afraid? Isn't it better to prepare to sharpen your sword, to peer into the darkness, and then to beard the lion in its den? Maybe you'll get hurt. Probably you'll get hurt. Life, after all, is suffering, but maybe the wound won't be fatal. So honestly, that was pretty deep. Think about all of what I just read. Do you truly think it is a good idea to retreat? Well, what if there truly is something rotten in the state of Denmark? Then what? Isn't it better under such conditions to live in willful blindness and enjoy the bliss of ignorance? Well, not if the monster is real. So, I've talked about this before a lot in the books I've read because it's true. People ignore their problems. They ignore, like, when we were talking about motivation, people ignore why they're not motivated. People ignore why they're not pursuing their dreams or following their dreams. People wonder why they tell themselves, hey, I'm going to go to the gym this year, and they never do. And then they don't answer why they don't want to. Or they answer it, but they don't choose to fix it. They just ignore the problem. They're like, nah, it'll go away. I'll eventually get motivated. Well, if you don't go to the root of the problem, it will not go away. Why you're scared, tell yourself certain things, and honestly why you're scared to do so. Some people are scared of success, which I think is wild to me. I'm like, why would you be scared of success? But honestly, when it comes to being successful, you deal with more people, more of your time is taken up, you eventually have more problems coming your way. Now, yes, you probably have money, girls, and nice, lavish things, but in reality, behind all that, you're working all the time, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with haters, you're dealing with people who just want to talk to you and take up your time and you want space. I mean, now the stuff I just said you're dealing with is small, but when it happens all the time it just becomes big. It's the small things that turn into big things. But by not thinking about something you don't want to know doesn't make it go away. You are merely trading specific particular pointed knowledge of the likely finite list of your real faults and flaws for a much longer list of undefined potential inadequacies and insufficiencies. So you're like, what he mentions here, you're like trading the list in your head. You're trading like, well, I do this and do that, so that is fine. Whereas you have the other list of stuff you need to work on that you're just ignoring and not touching. So, honestly, when you really think about that, people do that all the time. And I know sometimes sometimes self-disclosure is bad, but I do that. I still kind of, now I've gotten so much better, but I still kind of do that. And to be honest, I bet you your role models who are famous athletes, famous actors, and famous singers all have their own list of things they need to work on, but they ignore. Isn't that crazy? So, this was a very good book. I know I mentioned some difficult things. There's a psychologist example he used. There was where I remain vague and stagnant and murky. There was that. There's a couple other words I used, which I didn't know what had to do with the paragraph I read to you guys, but the takeaway for this video is do not ignore your problems. When you have problems, find a way to solve them or at least work on them, because you might not be good at it now, but you eventually will be. And like the car example, you might not have the right tool, but you have the tool to fix this. So just think about all that. The takeaway for this video is do not ignore your problems. This is the 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. It's one of the most famous self-betterment books out there, if not the. Actually, probably the most famous self-betterment book is the one I did last week by Dale Carnegie. But this is one of the most famous self-betterment books out there. It's specific, it's a bit of a thick read, but it is very good. I hope you all read it, and I hope you all have a great day. And where I live, there's a lot of bad weather, so wherever you live, if there is bad weather, you all drive safe, and you all be safe. Now, thank you all for watching.